All right, so the future of the Democratic Party is looking bleaker by the day, and I've been telling you guys for a while now that it looks like Democrats are on track to get absolutely curb stomped in the 2022 midterms and the 2024 general election, and that is pretty much going to be a guarantee if they stick on this current trajectory that they are on right now. You see here a new scoop from Sean Sullivan of the Washington Post. Democrats broadly see Harris and Buttigieg as the future of the party beyond President Biden. Now, this shouldn't be really surprising, right? It was pretty obvious when Pete got the position as the head of the Department of Public Transportation. Kamala Harris got the VP nod. It was pretty obvious that these are the two motherfuckers that they were going to try to shove down our throats in 2024, okay? That much was obvious. Now, this is obviously a complete political disaster, but why are they doing this? Well, to start us off here, first of all, Democrats are already fed up with Joe Biden's nonsense, okay? This is a guy who ran on being this, centrist who is going to be able to work with both Democrats, progressives, and Republicans to produce good legislation that would materially improve the lives of average Americans, and he absolutely has not followed through on any of the campaign promises that he made. We have seen basically the entirety of his social spending plan, the Build Back Better plan that he ran on and was literally his campaign slogan, get completely torn down and eviscerated by a handful of corrupt members within his own party. We've now spent months and months and months on the negotiations with the bipartisan infrastructure framework and Build Back Better that has basically resulted in like 2 handouts to corporate America, one of which is not even necessarily a guarantee to pass. So it's no wonder why Democrats are looking for somebody else in 2024, because President Joe Biden is simply not getting it done, okay? So who are we left with? Well, according to Democrats, they think Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg are the future of the party. And let me just say, if that's the future of your party, then this is a party that has no future, okay? Kamala Harris' approval rating right now is sitting at 28%. This is a historic low for vice presidents. It is even really only comparable to Dick Cheney under the Bush administration during the Iraq War. Okay, so just to give you a perspective in terms of how unpopular Kamala Harris is, and she's not even really, out there being the public face of the Biden administration, right? They've kind of been trying to keep her behind closed doors, and obviously that's for good reason, because every time she goes out there and speaks to a crowd, she is unnatural, she's not charismatic, she's a corporate stooge who doesn't really believe in anything other than rising to the highest position of power that she can, and it's pretty obvious. It comes across. She is not a genuine person, and people can see through that bullshit, but it's honestly really impressive that Kamala Harris is gunning for that spot from Hillary Clinton in terms of getting absolutely clobbered in an election to Donald Trump. And that is inevitably going to be the result. If Donald Trump runs in 2024, Kamala Harris runs in 2024, she's going to lose. She doesn't have any chance against Donald Trump, okay? Somehow, again, Kamala Harris is even less likable and less popular than Hillary goddamn Clinton. That is absolutely insane. You have to be doing something catastrophically wrong to be in the position that Kamala Harris is. And how do we get to this position? Well, again, this is somebody who ran in the 2020 Democratic primary who couldn't even make it to Iowa, okay? She had to drop out because her polling was dropping off that much. And what caused her polling to drop off? Well, it was after she stopped saying that she believed in Medicare for all and stopped focusing on somewhat economic progressive populism and started moving towards like woke identity politics. And her main thing in one of the main debates that we had during the 2020 Democratic primary was literally saying that Trump should be banned off Twitter. That was like one of the main points that she was trying to hammer home in, as if that was some like brave stand that she was taking on the debate stage. Okay, people don't give a fuck about any of what she had to say in the 2020 Democratic primary, and that's why she had to drop out. Okay, so when you don't focus on economic left-wing populism, your approval rating is going to be like this. It's going to look like this when you're just a hollow corporate shell who has absolutely nothing to say but virtue signal, and you don't even have the charisma to back up that virtue signaling, right? And as for Pete Buttigieg, right, I haven't seen any super recent polling data in terms of his approval rating. Now, some of the ones that I have seen show him at like relatively close to where Biden is at, which is like around 36 to 38% approval rating. So he's less bad than Kamala Harris in terms of where they're sitting at right now, but still, neither of them are going to have any chance against whether it's Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump or any of these people who are set to be running for the GOP in 2024. It's not going to happen, okay? And to give you a perspective in terms of how shitty the position is for Democrats right now in the midterm elections, okay, look at these numbers, all right? So we have early midterm vote preferences among registered voters, Democratic candidate, Republican candidate, again, just a generic ballot here, but look at the gap between Republicans and Democrats right now, okay? 41% to 51%, all right, a 10-point gap. for the Republicans in 2022, that is not just a curb stomping. That is like a historic curb stomping by the Republican Party that they are set to basically succeed with in 2022. Okay, how the fuck do you let it get to this point? This is an even larger gap than the Tea Party wave. Okay, so this would result in a complete flipping, a 180-degree turn in the House and the Senate if this stays true to 2022, okay? So how does it get to this point? I mean, and understand on top of this, okay, Democrats, because of the way that a lot of the gerrymandering has been happening, because of the ways that Republicans try to suppress the vote, Democrats not only have to have like an even generic ballot polling with Republicans, but they have to have like a 5, a 6, a 7-point lead to even come close to winning against Republicans because of how fucked up our voting systems are here in the United States. But they need to have a significant lead to even stand a chance, and they are at a 10-point deficit right now. That is as catastrophic as you could possibly ask for. That is as much of a red flag as you could possibly ask for. So clearly they're doing something wrong. What are they doing wrong? Well, we see from the Joe Biden administration the entire agenda that he promised the American people: lowering prescription drug prices, paid family leave. All of the most popular parts of his entire agenda have been cut from these bills. The American people see that. The American people want economic populism. And so we got some data here from Jacobin that came out about a week ago, and they basically looked, and I think it was in partnership with YouGov, but they basically did a polling series where they were asking average working class swing voters, right? So the type of people who Democrats should be trying to pull into their base and pull into their voting bloc, right? And they used different types of rhetoric. And you see here the breakdown of exactly what types of rhetoric they were using. And you see which one stands at the top in terms of a more positive or a more favorable view of this type of rhetoric and this type of campaigning. And what is it? Well, it's populist progressive. Okay, so this would be somebody like Bernie Sanders, right? Somebody who focuses their agenda largely on economic reforms, on healthcare reforms, things like that, while also, somewhat tying in like racial justice issues and that, right? But making the center focus of your campaign economic progressive populism. That is the most popular thing. This is exactly what Democrats should be leaning into. Of course, they're not, and we're going to get into what they actually are leaning into here. But you see what stands at the top. The most appealing rhetoric to average working class swing voters is progressive populism. Okay, it's the Bernie Sanders style of rhetoric. All right, and then just below that you see mainstream moderate, so that would be somebody like Joe Biden, and then below that you see woke moderate, that would be somebody like Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris, significantly less popular obviously, and then you see woke progressive, which is even less popular than that. So in terms of like a national election where you're trying to build a broad coalition of working class voters across the board, got people like for example, AOC or Cori Bush, who focus like racial justice issues at the center of their campaigns, might not do so well on the national stage, making that the central focus of their campaigns. So this and then Republican, obviously, you see they're absolutely trailing behind everything because, Republican rhetoric is not appealing to anybody. Tax cuts for the rich, inflated military budget, none of the actual substance of the Republican agenda is appealing to anybody but a tiny minority of Americans. So you see here the lesson, all right? The lesson is be more like Bernie Sanders, be less like Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg if you're trying to win a generic election, right? You got to focus and follow in the footsteps of a guy like Bernie Sanders. He would have been capable of building a broad working class coalition. So that is the lesson. Now, what are Democrats actually doing? Well, they're leaning into the culture war. They fell for Republicans' culture war bait. So Democrats plan to swing back aggressively at Republicans on critical race theory claims. Okay, so this is the type of shit that they were focusing on. For example, in the Virginia gubernatorial election where Terry McAuliffe lost to Greg Youngkin. And basically, I mean, the entire campaign was centered around bullshit culture war issues. For Terry McAuliffe, he was focusing his campaign on I'm not Trump, right? Youngkin represents this Trumpism, right? And he was just kept trying to tie him to Trump. That's all he ever talked about during the campaign. They literally sent out pro-Trump mailers to voters, okay? The Democratic Party sent out mailers of Trump endorsing Youngkin as if that was going to help them in the election. Okay, they were like literally doing advertising for the Youngkin campaign. And then they turn around and Youngkin was basically focusing on bullshit culture war issues like critical race theory and, what schools are teaching basically. And it worked because the Democrat in the race, Terry McAuliffe, wasn't focusing on economic populism. He wasn't focusing on actual material issues for average voters. And so what happens when you don't focus on the material interests of average voters? Then people are going to start focusing on these wedge culture war debate issues because nobody's talking about substance, all right? So they should be leaning in the direction of let's focus on substance so much that people just tune out the critical race theory bullshit. That's what they should be doing. But instead, they're choosing to dive headfirst into the GOP bait. Okay, this is exactly what Republicans want Democrats to do. Why? Again, because the Republican agenda of trickle-down Reaganomics and inflated military budgets, etc., and cutting social spending, trying to cut Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, these things are all massively, massively unpopular. Okay, and so instead of diving, swinging leftward as much as you possibly can on economic populism and saying, here are the things that we support, that the overwhelming majority of the American people support on economic policies, instead of focusing on that, they're choosing to fall for the culture war bait. It's completely delusional. If you think that this is a winning strategy in 2022 or 2024, Democrats are going to get absolutely curb stomped again. Okay, so listen, the overall takeaway from this, again, is that Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, if that's the future of your party, then that is not a party that I want anything to do with. These people are both hollow power-seeking, just generic Obama impression politicians who have absolutely nothing to say, especially Pete Buttigieg. This guy just sounds like a stale Obama with none of the charisma, but all of the corporatism of Obama. Okay, so neither of these people are going to be viable on a national stage. They are not going to defeat a fake right-wing populist like Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump or any of these other slated candidates that Republicans have coming up in 2022 or 2024. So the lesson is pretty clear. If you actually want to win elections and you want to build a broad working class coalition of a base, then focus on what Bernie Sanders is doing, focus on passing the policies that Joe Biden actually ran on. But instead, they're not going to do that. They're going to focus in on these bullshit culture war issues and get absolutely obliterated in 2022 and 2024.